Sure. Well, I'm here with Nneka. We are talking about love, how love wins when love works, because love is not easy and it's not simple. And I think the message of love can be trite and um, kind of gloss over real issues. And I think both of us have that intention of speaking the message of love, but in a way that's actually impactful and can create change.
So we live here in the Bible Belt, and I think that I've heard the love thrown around. Love is the answer. Love is the answer. And as a man of faith, I do believe that it's the answer. But I also have been given a lot of thought to love in relation to what's been happening in our country with the protests over racial injustice, and what does love look like in that realm? When people say love is the answer, you just need to love. What exactly does that mean? And I feel like the word love has become trite because it is a cop-out. It doesn't allow us to get our hands dirty when it comes to what love actually is. So when I talk to individuals about their relationships and I ask them to tell me about love, honestly, they don't tell me about all the good times. Like the times in which I know about the deepest of love is when they're telling me about the worst times and what they did to get out of that. And so why is that not the same in our country, in the fact that we've got these issues that have constantly plagued us, but we haven't looked at them and we haven't done like the work to get out of it. So can I really say that, we're practicing love? Is love really being put to the test? And so it's been interesting for me to kind of look at what love means within the context of racial reconciliation, social change, social justice, because I feel like love is this toolbox, but right now we've been operating with no tools, no actual tools as to what it means to put it into practice. So
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good analogy, and I think that it's also like, when I think about love and when it's the deepest, it is when you're trying to dig yourself out of those feelings of anger, of frustration, and like when you can intentionally choose to love someone, that can, kind of like go beyond the anger, go beyond the frustration. And when I think about issues of social unrest, like tense racial relationships, the anger and pain comes because of love.
absolutely.
It's like those feelings of anger and pain, they're just as important as the feeling of love. And they're only there because love is, because of self-love, I'm going to be really upset when somebody does an injustice against me. Because I love my brother, I'm going to be really angry when somebody does an injustice against them. And so it's like love is both the seed that inspires that anger and fear, but then it's like there has to be a loop. It's like you have to.
Because I love this country, I'm going to get upset when this country doesn't live up to what it says it is on paper.
Right.
I'm going to be upset when something that I love so much hurts me so deep. And so I think that, when I look at how people have viewed certain acts that come out of love, it's really important to put the perspective back on where it's coming from. Because people think that people will demonize protests and say, why are they doing this? They hate this country. And it's like, no, actually they're doing it because they love this country. They want it to be what you think it is, And so I think that a lot of times we, as human beings, choose to avoid looking at things that are ugly, that aren't cut cleanly, and we are afraid to face ourselves, and that's us as individuals, that's us as a group at large. Yeah.
It's definitely just started raining on us. Well, I think that brings it back to self-love. It's like you can't love your neighbor unless you love yourself. And I think that's the message that really needs to be thought about. And what is real self-love?
I'm just trying to figure out, do I ignore the rain? Or...
I think
So the rain has kind of thrown a hamper into our plans, but we're just talking about a little bit about self-love and the importance of self-love. And absolutely is important, but in the context of like healing relationships, I think self-love has also in itself been a detriment to us stepping out of that self for another person. So it can be the one of the problems that we face in loving this another person's self. And so don't get locked into your own self-love that you don't put yourself out there for another individual.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that sense of sacrifice is, like you said, like I think that's one of the tools in the toolbox that we're not comfortable using, and yeah, I think that's really important.
I think that's a foundation for gaining other tools is sacrifice. So starting with sacrifice. If
Mm-hmm.
what I say I'm doing for love, am I risking something? Am I giving something?
Mm-hmm.
Do I feel like I am not necessarily losing something, but again, what am I giving? What am I sacrificing? And a sacrifice is not a sacrifice if you don't feel it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can give you $1, but if I have 100, it's not really a sacrifice.
Yeah.
I give you $1 from the $1.50 that I have. That's a sacrifice. So
Mm-hmm.
I think we ask ourselves, what exactly am I sacrificing for another person?
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. So I think we had lots of obstacles to make this movie, but it's important. I think the conversation about love it's important to really think deeply about it. And
it's an ongoing conversation.
For sure.
Right? You say it like that. It's an ongoing conversation. So it's not even a end point. It's more like we'll talk later. More later.
For sure.
So.
I agree.
Do you want to plug yours?
Yes. So I'm Emeka Nnaka. Soon the podcast coming from where I sit. YouTube channel from where I sit. All one word. Instagram is where I do all of my talking there. That's Emeka Nnaka. And your spelling will be up there anyway. But thank you guys so much, and I'll see you guys on the next one.
So, yeah, it's Juneteenth. We just had a nice little talk with Emeka about love and the way that love helps us, but is also this complicated tool that involves a lot of other things. Work. It's hard work.
I think, Seth kind of made a good point that I have this tendency, I want the answer, right? It's like, I think about problems, I want to like simplify it down to a message about love and make that simple. But the truth is, it's not simple. It is work. It's a lot of work. And even knowing that, I have this I think we all have this urge to like distill things down into these actionable items. But a lot of love is listening. And getting comfortable with not being comfortable. And, kind of like investigating those feelings of discomfort and those things that are hard to talk about. And then using love as like a way to get out of that. Does that make sense?
The reality is solutions are complicated. Solutions aren't easy. Solutions are what we're looking for. It's what we want to find. So let's solve these problems, but at the same time, they're not readily available to us. We have to find solutions to these problems. What are we talking about? We're at this point in America, we're having a huge conversation about racism. And so I think it's important to name that. That's what we are talking about. What are solutions to that? And how does love play a role in that? We're all feeling this fear and anger at what we've seen videos of on the internet and everywhere. So how do we confront that anger and fear? We don't do it with more fear. We don't do it with more anger. We don't outshout the other guy. You do have to listen. You have to be humble about it, and you start with that love. In the seeking and the searching process, you start with a mindset of love thy neighbor, and it's going to take work, especially if you don't like your neighbor, right? Because you can love somebody you don't like. There's times when we don't like each other, but choosing to continue loving each other is the necessary part of continuing together.
Well, and even I think understanding. I think that I, as a white person, have to reconcile the fact that there is absolutely no way that I can understand what it's like to live as a black person in America. I can't actually walk a mile in their shoes. And so it's absolutely imperative that I listen with a full heart, because that's the only real way that I can even approach understanding. And to do that with compassion is it's imperative.
And the humility to acknowledge that as hard as you might try to understand what it's like to be somebody from a particular background, a particular experience, like your experience is limited necessarily. You're just not going to be able to access all the emotions that somebody else has felt. Again, I mean, that does kind of bring it back again to this, loving yourself enough to recognize that, you're not perfect, and no one else is either, and the solutions aren't perfect.
Right.
And waiting for the perfect solution, waiting for the perfect time to fall in love, waiting for the perfect person to fall in love with, like none of that's how it works.
Yeah, it all takes work. It all takes, active work to try and both be better at being who you are, but also be better at treating other people with respect in the way that they feel respected.
Yeah, recognizing that they might not see your good intentioned actions or words as helpful, and understanding that somebody else's experience might require a different approach than one you've even ever thought of, or it is important to listen with love, with a loving heart. Listen to those people who are hurting or angry and find out what they're upset about. I mean, that's true in our relationship. That's true in the streets of America. It's true in our politics. You have to understand why they're mad, why your partner's mad, before you can, try to solve any of that. And yeah, it is a give and take. It's you're not going to get this right 100%. You're not going to get it right every time you make a step in that direction. But if we start with love,
Yeah, I think it's also starting with love and recognizing that it's not going to be comfortable. I think that in our relationship, a lot of the time when there's something, we can tell each other doesn't feel right about something, we kind of put it off for a little bit, and it's no, we have to address this issue, and it's not comfortable. It usually involves emotions that aren't pretty, but once you can get past that, the love is deeper, and you do feel it's like comparing happiness and joy, where you can have this surface, everything's okay, but when you dig deep and get uncomfortable and really kind of go to those places that might not feel good for a long time, you get to those deeper emotions that, where life actually comes from, and where love is rooted in action and is rooted in understanding. I think that's the goal, is to be brave enough to have those uncomfortable conversations, to be brave enough to sit with discomfort, and to have enough love to do that, and recognize that is an action of love.
So, big shout out to Emeka, our buddy, who has some more videos coming for you guys. Check his out. I check out his social media and follow him. Great message from a very wise and experienced, learned individual. And, let's celebrate Juneteenth. Let's recognize that, some of our brothers and sisters in this country come from a different place. Their heritage is completely different than ours. And we show respect at least one day out of the year, every day of the year. We should be showing respect to our friends who survived slavery, who were brought to this country whose ancestors were brought to this country against their will and have been disadvantaged for years. Jim Crow laws. we need to work, and we need to do more for our brothers and sisters. And today is one day where we hope to honor and celebrate that history.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's really important to honor the people that are carrying that legacy of beautiful Blackness and are, creating the change that really needs to happen, and honor those people that are brave enough to have these conversations and to do the work.
Big love.